I was in high school on a worship band of this budding church plant, and this church plant was really excited about Hillsong and doing worship like Hillsong, and just a lot of energy, a lot of excitement, a lot of joy. But at the specific worship practice I was in, I was not feeling very happy. I was actually in a need of connecting with God through some of the sadness in my heart. I remember in the middle of this practice, the band leader stops practice and says, hey, everybody stop. Daniel, we're going to need you to be a little more happy when you're playing and singing. In this moment, I was shocked. I was like, no, this isn't, that felt so inauthentic to what I was actually going through in that moment. And it brought this kind of God moment in my life to say, is it okay for me to want to bring my sadness to God? And I don't know about you, but most people I know in the church are really good at bringing our happy and our thanksgiving to God. And we're really good at asking for things for God, but we're not very good at bringing some of the more negative experiences to God in our conversation and communication with God. What we see in Jesus and what we see in the scriptures is that instead of viewing it that way, that God only wants our happy and God only wants to provide for our needs, what we see in the Psalms and specifically in the life of Jesus is that we can actually have a very real, raw, and authentic relationship with God. In fact, that's the very relationship that Jesus fought so hard for us to understand that we can have with God. So what I want to do today is provide some of the scriptural foundation and a visual imagery to help us understand what it means to bring our whole and real selves to God. So we know this is true because 40% of the prayers in the Bible, that's what the book of the Psalms means. In Hebrew, it means the prayers. 40% of those have aspects of lament lament. That's what I was looking for. And so we've come up with an acronym and an image to help us understand what it means to bring our whole and real selves to God. And that is Talpp. And it doesn't really mean anything other than it gives us 5 letters that remind us of all the things and all the ways that we can communicate with God. The first thing is trumpets. We have lots of examples of the Psalms where we bring the joy and the happiness and the thanksgiving. And this is a great muscle, a spiritual muscle, prayer muscle to work. And most of us are pretty good at this. The other thing that we see is ashes, where there's a sense of personal lament, where we're bringing the death and those things that have caused us sickness and sadness, more personally about our own sin. So Psalm 51 is a great example. Have mercy on me, O God, according to your unfailing love. So ashes. And most of us are actually pretty decent at that as well. We know to tell God we're sorry and to kind of acknowledge our sin, right? But the number one thing that I think people struggle with is lament. And that's what our L is. And that's why it's at the bottom. It's like the bottom of my heart, right? Where we see these statements to God of just raw anger, vitriol, vengeful requests like, God, kill those people and kill their babies. And it's in there, I promise. And unanswered questions, and just questions like, God, where the heck are you? In Psalm 13. How long, O Lord? It's really saying, God, are you who I think you are? And there's 40% of the Psalms that have entire lament in them, or parts of lament. But most of us are really bad at this. And what we found is when people engage with this big slice of the heart pie here, is that there are parts of their spiritual beings that feel more closely connected to God, because for their whole life they've been taught, I can't bring those things to God. And so out of this lament, it's a more honest connection with God. It's a more real connection with God, just like we would have with some of our best friends and closest family members. And out of that, we go to promises. And once we open up this can of worms that is all the unresolved questions, anger, frustration, doubts, we then ask ourselves, what is true about God that can meet me in these questions and anger and frustration? And this is typically where we go to Jesus, because that's where we see God in flesh and full. Or we go back to our past. Where has God done something that maybe contradicts some of these things I'm feeling right now or questioning? And out of those promises, we then go to petitions. There it is. Where then we ask, okay, God, in light of this deep anxiety, depression, frustration I have, I am choosing to remember that you have been this for me and that you've shown me this in Jesus. And I've experienced that healing before. And so I'm choosing to rest on this promise. So God, out of that promise, would you blank? God, would you bring this? Would you bring that? In light of what I'm going through, God, please meet me in my need. So what we see in this journey from the T to the A to the L to the P to the P, I sound like a rapper there, that this idea of going to the depths and breadth of our emotions and our experience gives us a fuller connection and relationship to God, that our whole heart, that's the image here, that our whole heart we can bring to God. And that's good news. And that's a key thing that the life of the believer needs to know if they're going to have a healthy relationship with God.